Feeling pessimistic about the world? Tired of hearing crisis after crisis after crisis? I feel you. The headlines, the news are pretty catastrophic, or at the very least, very pessimistic. And sometimes getting that optimism within us is very, very, very hard. But who knows if the tides might start to change? Why? Well, basically, this week is starting the United Nations General Assembly. The 80th anniversary, really, of the United Nations, after 80 years since the Second World War finished. And maybe, only maybe, leaders reunite once again and try to solve humanity's greatest challenges together, despite their remarkable differences. So let's watch out, because maybe, only maybe, we're able to survive these potential catastrophic negative impacts, going from wars to climate change, AI, and many other issues that could trigger a potential catastrophe in humanity, which obviously we hope and we think that might not happen, but obviously it's a pathway that we don't want that to happen in any terms. So let's get it started, right? What is the agenda of the United Nations General Assembly for next week? Well, once leaders unite, I'm sure they will make great speeches about the nation state and so on. But in reality, there are a few items in the agenda that are extremely relevant in the immediate run, because otherwise, who knows where humanity, or at least certain nations, might end up becoming a potential, again, catastrophic outcome is possible. And you might call me that I'm going too far and that a catastrophe is out of sight. And really, only 80 years ago, the Second World War ended. And back then, already many catastrophes happened. And before that, the natural tendency of humanity was to invade other countries. And that was like a natural phenomena, that from one day to another, you could have your neighboring country invading you and killing thousands and thousands and making more atrocities to your population, and vice versa. That was the natural state of the world. And the budget, when it comes to GDP, was over 50%. So it's not unnatural, and it's not something completely out of mind to say that a potential negative impact could be catastrophic if humanity does not trust each other. That's why, in this concept, when it comes to wars, we need to stop it, completely stop it, and reunite humanity once again. And there are especially three fronts. The first one is in Gaza. We need an immediate and long-lasting ceasefire, bring hostages home, and try to carry out the plan proposed of the two-state solution. Then when it comes to Ukraine, it's extremely relevant that the Russian Federation and Ukraine have also a long-lasting peace, in this case a ceasefire agreement, that international borders are recognized again, and that the aggression of the Russian Federation stops, not only because of the people of Ukraine, but especially because in case that Russia invaded the country, or at least partially speaking, this will change the game. As we said at the beginning of the video, it was a natural state of the world to invade another country until the end of Second World War. And thanks that doesn't happen again. But if we allow the Russian Federation, in this case, the leaders of the Russian Federation, that to happen, then we will allow not only this country, but many more to do the same. And that will be terrible for humanity as a whole. So these items should be very high on the agenda. And the third one is the many, many other wars that are currently happening in the world, including Sudan. We cannot forget about Sudan, and the Security Council needs to proceed with the measures that have already been established. And again, even though the Security Council might not proceed legally as one might expect because of the many vetoes that have happened in the past, including the sixth veto by the US to conduct a Gaza ceasefire, the Sudan question should be resolved as soon as possible. Then we'll go to many other issues, including climate change. Climate change is a issue that certainly can provoke a disaster in the long run, not in the very short run, that's very clear. But the problem is that it's an intangible problem that you don't see, that only all countries collectively together can solve. And that's why they need national determined contributions, new plans aligned with 1.5 degrees, and basically a fully decarbonized economy. And that this issue, that is medium to long run, is not forgotten, because otherwise it might become irreversible. That's why climate change needs to be very high on the agenda as well. Then AI. AI might be the most dangerous agent and potential consequence that we're creating, and that might have immediate or short-run consequences for humanity. We're not talking about only having humans having a higher agencies of AI systems. I'm talking about very basic stuff. For example, banning humanized autonomous killing weapons. These killing weapons that are autonomous should be fully prohibited. Also, obviously, having a global regulation when it comes to safeguarding and having an ethical plan for the use of AI. Same as there's an IMF for the economic system, also the IPCC for a governmental body that gives recommendation for climate change, and so on and so forth. The WHO for healthcare related issues. We should have not only an international body of AI, but some common rules. But as of today, there's absolutely nothing, and we're creating again an alien, an Asian that could have potential negative and catastrophic outcomes for humanity. Obviously many opportunities, but also catastrophic outcomes, and we need to make sure that we only grasp the opportunities and we take those, and we don't forget about the potential negative outcomes. And then there are many more items in the agenda. The United Nations reform, which is having many issues because of their cuts in the budgets from member states. The United Nations reform should make a leaner and much more effective organization because of this, and also because of some potential improvements that the UN as an organization could have. Then when it comes to women's rights, we should make sure that equality remains high in the agenda. And this goes from obviously equality in the workplace, but especially in those places where women don't have even a chance to have the right for an education, including, for example, in Afghanistan. And we should make sure that the Taliban, for example, clearly sees that it's not only a moral issue, but a rationality issue of having half of the population also making the country better. So that's another key aspect. And then the last one is refinancing. Refinancing when it comes to the Global South. The Global South currently has many drawbacks when it comes to financing the most basic needs, when it comes to education, healthcare, and so on. And the rules that were established 80 years ago after the Second World War should completely change so that the Global South can also properly finance themselves. And this also comes obviously with a very high priority of restructuring and modernizing the global architecture. And the current United Nations Security Council has 5 permanent members. And that's really the reality of 80 years ago. But we have a new reality after 80 years, and at the very least, a member of the African Union, of Africa as a whole, India, and a member of Latin America should be present at the United Nations Security Council as permanent members, because otherwise the reality and the governance is a fiction, as really it doesn't represent the current reality of international relations and the civilization as a whole. So in conclusion, there are many items in the agenda, many opportunities. There's hope, even though the challenges are, some of them, extremely difficult to solve. from the technical, cultural, and global point of view. But still, we should remain hopeful. And for me, the biggest takeaway is that many countries really have good intentions. Take a look at, for example, recognizing Palestine. The vast majority of countries in the United Nations General Assembly, so member states, want to recognize it. It is the majority, really, even though the UN Security Council is currently blocked by the US. But this, for example, should give us hope that many countries really want to pursue not only a strategy of a good public affairs and international policy, but rather having a prosperity for all humankind, including their own country. So that really is what gives me hope that there are many countries that want to do more good than harm. And really the only thing that lasts is having trust among each other. And we hope that in this United Nations General Assembly, trust is regained. And once again, humanity can be united to cooperate and to tackle humanity's greatest challenges. So if you like this content, consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, enjoy life, embrace your curiosity, and be the change you want to see in the world. See you in the next optimistic adventure.